us. Let's pay homage to the lineage gurus. Homage to the Venerable Mang Liao Ming. Homage to Master Sakya Zhengkong. Homage to His Holiness the 16th Karmapa. And homage to Master Dupten Dorji. Homage to the three jewels of Kwantum. Homage to the main deity of the good practice today, the greatly merciful and compassionate Guan Yin Bodhisattva. Singer. Tanzan Chacho and all Dhamma masters, Dhamma educators, Dhamma teachers, Dhamma instructors, Dhamma assistants, directors of temples and chapters, and all disciples present here and over the webcast. And our VIPs today are Madam to Ambassador Daniel Liao, the Taipei rep to Sweden, Dhamma Sister Judy, Accountant to Buddha School, Dhamma Sister Teresa, producers for the Geni Diansang Xinteng from CTI TV Taiwan, Dhamma Sister Rebecca Xiaqi, Dr. Zhou, Dr. Ryan Zhuang, and family of Master Lin Ning, member of the Voices from Heaven Choir Group, Miss Dhamma Sister Erica Chen, and the rep to the council from Taipei City, Dhamma Sister Che Mei Huiling, and the daughter of the former council from Kaohsiung, Dhamma Sister Imation, and the director of the chapter in Sweden, Dhamma Sister Li Qing, and Dr. Liu from Sweden, and Dr. Luo from Sweden, and members of the Sunny Line Dance Group, Dhamma Sister Lin Yixuan. Good evening, everybody. How do you do?
Thank you for coming. 那么今天我们同修这个是大慈大悲观世音菩萨。
Today we had the group practice of the greatly merciful and compassionate Guan Yin Bodhisattva, and this Bodhisattva can represent many deities because they are myriad emanations of Guan Yin Bodhisattva. There are many, many of them. The Guan Yin forms are just too many, very numerous, innumerable. And I went to my big sister's home and I saw a form of Guan Yin that's rarely found. This is not Guan Yin from the South Sea. What kind of Guan Yin is that? I've forgotten the name.
但是神采还是记得。
But I still remember how she looks.
那个我从来没有看过那种观音像。
I've never seen Kuan Yin in that form anywhere else.
比较
And the Kuan Yin
的观音呢，
that we often encounter,
其实是像马头观音。
the fierce ones are like Hayagriva, the horse-headed Kuan Yin.
马头明王。
That's Hayagriva.
马头明王也叫马头观音。
So we either call Hayagriva Vidyaraja or Hayagriva Kuan Yin.
有变化，它的像。
So Kuan Yin has many different
那么它的
forms
像呢，
or
也就是
transformations.
马头明王。
And one of the form is Hayagriva,
像
wisdom king or Vidyaraja with the horse head, with the head of a horse. And at my home in Taiwan, I enshrine many Kuan Yin. On the right, she's called Aolong Kuan Yin.
这个头像
Aolong is with the head of a dragon and the body of a fish, a very evil and fierce god. And after being subdued by Kuan Yin, he became Kuan Yin's vehicle, and she's called Aolong Kuan Yin. That's the shrine on the right, and the shrine on the left is the wish-fulfilling Kuan Yin.
观世音菩萨有32应身像，32应身。
And Kuan Yin has 32 physical emanations.
那我记得，那我看到一次这个。
And one time,
非常令人难忘的这个观音
I had a vivid impression of a Kuan Yin's appearance, really unforgettable.
我在休息当中啊，
When I was
真正的睡觉，
taking a nap,
休息当中，
it's not a real sleep.
闭着，
I was just resting, closing my eyes,
突然之间啊，
and all of a
这个
sudden,
眼睛稍微张开一点，
I opened my eyes slightly, and at the head of my bed,
有一尊这个
I saw there was a Kuan Yin Bodhisattva that's extremely feminine and beautiful.
穿的那个天衣跟重裙，
Just
非常热，
very gorgeous, and
非常的热，
her
热的要命。
outfit, the garment, the layers of the celestial outfit. But I feel really hot now. Sorry, it's just so hot here
汗水都流出来。
that I'm sweating now. It's too hot.
那一尊观音像啊，突然间回头，
But that Kuan Yin
他看我一眼，
appearance all of a
我的
sudden
全身
turned her head toward me and took a look at me, and my whole bones were
不得了的，人间
crackling.
没有那一种绝
It's
色，
just
绝对没有，
incredible. There is no such beauty on earth.
你从来想象不到的那观
It's
世音菩萨，
nothing like you ever imagine that Kuan Yin Bodhisattva can be that beautiful.
那无法形容，没有办法形容。
It's hard to put into words. It's very difficult to describe. I've talked about this before too.
心啊，就开放，心完全。
When I saw her, my heart
然后我本来
opened wide,
没有了解，没有了解。
and actually I had a problem then. And then when I saw Kuan Yin
这样一边
turning her head as she was leaving,
都融化了，
my whole person was melting. And I knew that my problem would be resolved. And sure enough, as soon as I had the vision, I got a news that my problem had been resolved. No more issue. What a coincidence. After her appearance, I thought to myself, my problem would be resolved, and sure enough, it was. I remember there is a singer in Hong Kong that came to Seattle called Mei Yen Fang Anita Mui that came to sing in Seattle. And the outfit that Kuan Yin Bodhisattva wore was like the outfit that Anita Mui wore when she sang, do you remember? She sang the Ni Ren Hua, which is a woman as like a flower. Yeah, but there was a song that's very special. Not the woman like a flower. When she sang the song, and she had flowers on her head, and she was wearing clothes like a goddess, very beautiful and colorful and sparkling. And that's the sight I had of Kuan Yin's, and that was like a bag. I just saw her bag, and then she turned her head, and I was melted like an ice cream. She's just the most beautiful. But Kuan Yin Bodhisattva has innumerable emanation, and most importantly 32 forms. Yilan Kuan Yin. So the Kuan Yin that I saw at my big sister's home, she's called the Yilan. It's like a fish basket Kuan Yin. She's holding a basket filled with fish. The typical ones that we often see is the one holding a vase and the willow branch. Oh, but the Kuan Yin that I saw is undescribable. After I had the vision of this Kuan Yin, it was the most I don't know how to put it into words. The most exquisite. And the best part is as she was turning her head, as she was disappearing. That's the most incredible. Now we want to talk about X again. Sorry. We can't help talking about her. One time, she wanted to sculpt a statue of Kuan Yin to enshrine. And the sculptor asked her, what kind of Kuan Yin do you want to sculpt? Do you want me to sculpt? So X took a photo from her wallet and just sculpt one with this face. And you know who's in the photo? That's herself, X herself. And when the sculptor saw it,
不说话，
didn't say
不
anything.
讲，什么都不讲。好，他回去雕，
And
雕起来
he
就
sculpted
很
it,
苗条，
a very
这个
slim
很尖细的观音，
and very
这个
with the slim
鹅蛋的
face, egg-shaped
当然
face
像他了，
Guan Yin that didn't look like her, of
啊
course.
他也没有讲什么， 这
And
也是一场过去式的
didn't
事
say
情。
anything. So this is something from the past that this
那么我
happened.
们的观音呢，我们的观世音菩萨，
And our
真的
Guan
是
Yin
很慈悲，
Bodhisattva,
它叫做大慈大悲。为什么慈？
she's really,
慈悲
really
慈悲
compassionate.
两个字，
and she's referred as the greatly merciful and
就是
compassionate.
给人
And merciful is
给
giving
所有
people
的人满
happiness
足，给所
to
有的人
fulfill the wishes
悲呢，
and
就
contentment
解
of
决
all
人家的痛
beings.
苦。
And compassionate is to resolve the sufferings of sentient
所以
beings.
你看“慈”这个字，
So
给众
merciful
生快乐，
or loving kindness is to give happiness to sentient beings.
解决众生的痛苦，
And resolving the suffering of sentient
这
beings,
是大
that's
慈
called
大悲。它的
compassionate.
意义在这里，
And she is greatly
它能够
merciful and
给众生
compassionate.
快乐，
That's the meaning.
解决
Because
众
she
生
can
的
bestow happiness upon sentient beings and resolve the sufferings of sentient beings.
所以那个雕刻师知道，
So the
他拿到
sculptor
相片
knew
以后啊，
when he
他就
got
雕
the
刻的
photo,
像
he
作
didn't
为
sculpt
观世音菩萨的
the statue according to that face.
他说这个不像，不
He
像慈
said
悲，
that did not
只是
look
圆滚滚的一
compassionate,
张脸，
just a round face. So he didn't comply.
这是他的这个笑话了。
So that's a joke about her.
我发觉今天来了很多这个
I found that
好久没
there
有
are
见到的，
many people who we haven't seen for a long time,
他们都不自我介绍，
but they didn't introduce
都没有自
themselves.
我介绍的。像我看到那个不是玉
Like
萍吗？
Isn't that Yiping?
对啊，你怎么突然间出来了？
How come all of a sudden you appeared again?
从哪里来？
Where did you come from?
从旧金山来。
San Francisco.
我看到一个穿蓝色衣服的，
And someone in
你从哪
blue.
里来？
Where are you from?
是蓝色的嘛？
Wearing blue.
你叫什么名字？
What is your name?
哦，你是亚特兰大来的。
From Atlanta.
我
Atlanta.
看出来，还有好几个没有自我介绍的，
And a few more
还有好
That-
多个哦。
did not introduce themselves. Several of them.
那算了，不再讲。
It's okay. No need to mention
你
them.
们出来第一次，就是
If you
要
came here
让
for
大
the
家
first
认识
time, you want to let
所以我
people
会
know
以
you.
为是卧底。
Otherwise, I would think that you are an undercover.
现在也有很多卧底的，对不对？
There are many undercover these days.
这是一场这个永恒的战争，
Like a mole.
卧底
So that's an everlasting battle. There are moles
间谍战，
and
谍对
spies.
谍。
So
谍对谍
spies,
谍
a
战
spy against
我想要
spy,
问一下，对
spies
还有
against
这个
spies.
大老板在那里啊，
And the big boss
啊，
over
在纽
there
泽西州的，
from New Jersey,
是不是？
right?
对，郑老板，哇，这大企业家哎，
And the
哎
boss,
他是大
Zheng,
企业家哎，你看，
he's
企业
a
家都不吭声的。
big businessman, an entrepreneur that didn't say anything.
今天观世音菩萨啊，
the big
他很慈悲。
figures don't say anything. Guan Yin Bodhisattva is very compassionate. Of course, there were many Guan Yin Bodhisattvas descended, and their attendants all descended here. So let the Bodhisattvas protect us so that we can live a life filled with happiness and peace without all kinds of distractions and obstructions. To the compassionate Guan Yin, please let us be healthy, each of us be healthy, and don't suffer from illnesses. And those who suffer from illnesses, please help them alleviate the illnesses. And those with griefs, let the griefs lessen and gradually become happy. Let us be more diligent in our spiritual cultivation. Let us be more compassionate toward all sentient beings, and to increase our bodhicitta. And please also salvage us. And because in the salvation of sentient beings, Guan Yin Bodhisattva has the closest affinity. His salvation and his vows are extremely tremendous. And all the same, he did not forsake, he doesn't forsake any sentient being.
那我们今天呢，再谈一下这个道果。
Let's now talk more about Lamdre.
他这里此处所说语义教授有二。
In this area, the oral instructions include inner text classification and inner meaning connection. So oral instruction means you use words and language to express Lamdre. And there are two kinds. One, so it's the inner text of Lamdre classification. And the second is the inner meaning, which is the most profound meaning connection. And the inner text classification is divided into three parts. One is the common path of rebirth and nirvana. Nirvana or reincarnation. Rebirth or reincarnation and nirvana. So the common path of both of them. And second is the worldly path of the discussion of the will. And what is this worldly path? As what we often talked about is never do any evils, always do goods. That's considered the worldly path. And the out of worldly path of the turning of the wheel. That's the third part. These are the titles, and in the future there would be explanations on them. What is the out of worldly path is to purify yourself, to purify your mind. That's the out of worldly path. And never do evils and always do goods. That's the worldly path. Those belong to the worldly path. And purifying our own minds are the out of worldly path. And the common path of rebirth and nirvana is divided into 7 parts. The path of the 3 present divisions, the path of the 3 continuum, the path of the 4 measurements, the path of 6 instructions, the path of the 4 years transmission, and the path of the start of 5 affinities and the discernment of the protection. These are all just the titles. In the future, there would be explanation on them. So what is the path of the 4 years transmission or the oral instruction? So sometimes Grandmaster is giving Dharma teaching here, and when the Dharma teaching involves many secrets or the concepts of enlightenments cannot be spoken to all sentient beings. For example, for those with high spiritual roots, the Dharma transmission will be different. For the intermediate spiritual roots and for the lower spiritual roots, the Dharma transmissions are all different. Now we are all seated here together. So there are some with a strong or high spiritual roots, intermediate spiritual roots, or the lower spiritual roots. And there are also beginners and novice. So those with lower spiritual roots and novice and beginners, they don't understand anything. So here, all I can talk about are the common topics. And only when I encounter one with strong or high spiritual root, then that would be called the ear transmission or oral instruction, which is meaning only transmitted to very few people. The same thing with the inner tantra, that was transmitted to only very few people before. So that's the path of the 4 years transmission. So 4 years. So that means 2 people, because one person with 2 ears. So 4 ears mean 2 people, 2 persons. I talk to you and you hear what I say. And upon hearing, you understand. And without hearing it, you cannot understand. So you cannot criticize things that you do not understand. For example, when we say that the Buddha and Mara are one and not 2, and upon hearing this, you would say, what, Grandmaster? How can the Buddha is the same as the Mara, and that they are one and the same? So the Buddha is Mara and Mara is Buddha. How can it be? And this should be spoken to those with high spiritual root, with strong spiritual root. But those with weak spiritual root would have lots of contradiction and hesitation. So only those with strong spiritual roots, this can be spoken to them. That we can say that rebirth and nirvana are the common path. That rebirth is the same as nirvana, and nirvana is the same as rebirth. So what's that? And many people will be muddle-headed. But actually, in the Diamond Sutra, it's been said very clearly. It's been written very clearly. So if you comprehend the Diamond Sutra, you're close to enlightenment. If you truly comprehend the Heart Sutra, you're also close to enlightenment. If you comprehend 能切记
不是任言啊，任结经也差不多快悟道。
Lankavatara Sutra, you're also close to enlightenment. Leng Che Jing.
跟大般若经
And Mahaprajna Paramita Sutra, they all considered out of worldly path. Only when you reach the highest realm, you can say that rebirth and nirvana are one and the same, and Buddha and Mara are one. But if you say this without being enlightened, then that would be like a slander or defamation. The Buddha once said that if you ask, did Sakyamuni Buddha give Dharma teaching? You said yes for 49 years. But in the Diamond Sutra, it was written that Sakyamuni Buddha did never give Dharma teaching. And if you say that the Buddha gave Dharma teaching, then you slandered the Buddha. But he did give Dharma teaching. Why? By saying that he gave Dharma teaching, you slander Sakyamuni Buddha. So you may not understand, because this can only be understood by those at the highest spiritual realm. That is indeed the case. That in the worldly Dharma and out of worldly Dharma, they are different way of expression.
这里有提到这个五缘起之道，谈种种的缘起，首部之别，也就是堕方便、
So the start of the 5 affinities and the discernment of the protection.
论道，还有通师生定之因，这个都是标题啊。
And the cause of these are all titles. So the cause of the understanding arising to stability and the broad exposition on the total absorption and the path of abandoning, gaining and losing, the path of the 4 awakenings, the path of the mind abiding, and the fruition of the correct cutting, and the conclusion. And all these are just the titles. And this is on the explanation, the common path of rebirth and nirvana. So the first of the inner text classification is called the common path of rebirth and nirvana. So why is it called that way? The answer is it's teaching the exposition of the 5 paths, the 13 grounds, the 37 body divisions, and the common appearance and instructions. And of this, there are also the 5 paths, which is the path of merit accumulation, the path of preliminary practices, the path of seeing the path of practice, and the ultimate path. So in our path of merit accumulation is you avoid all evils and always do goods. And currently, what Tzu Chi Foundation is doing is on the path of merit accumulation. And the path of preliminary practices is what we are doing now. Like great prostrations, great offerings, the 4-fold refuge, and the 4 immeasurables, and also bodhicitta. So these are considered the preliminary practices or the fundamental practices. And the path of seeing is considered enlightenment. once you gained enlightenment, you comprehend, you know what is the worldly path, what is the out-of-worldly path, and what is the combination, and that's the path common to rebirth and nirvana. At this time, you already have awakening or realization, enlightenment. And at the highest level, you understand all the Dharma spoken by the Buddha. That's called the path of seeing the path. And then the path of practice. Because after seeing the path or after enlightenment, you don't put it into real practice, and that your conduct does not comply to the concept. Like when a professor is teaching, that it's only about the concept or the theory, and sometimes he cannot apply it. But if you can apply it, then that's the real practice, and that's on the path of practice. You have to put it into real practice to combine with your enlightenment. Then it can be paired. But if you don't practice, then you can't be paired. So practice is very important. So not only you can see the path, you actually attain the path. Then you have fruition, and that would become the ultimate path. And also talks about the 13 grounds. A bodhisattva has 10 grounds, from the first ground all the way to the Huayanti. A total 10 grounds, and then the 11th ground is for the 11-faced Guan Yin, with 11 heads represents the 11th ground, and that's Buddhahood. And that's the basic realization. And then the marvelous awakening, that's Buddhahood. And the 13th ground is Vairocana Buddha at the center. He's the Buddha on the 13th ground. And then 37 Bodhi divisions. Last week, I have talked about 37 Bodhi divisions. And that's the common path of Lamdre. In our Dharma practice, some of them are uncommon Dharma. What does it mean? That it only exists in True Buddha school, that it doesn't exist in other schools. But the common Dharma, like the 5 paths, the 13 grounds, 37 Bodhi divisions, are all common Dharma. But the rest, those that only exist at True Buddha school, but not in other schools, they are all the uncommon Dharma. Like our armor protection doesn't exist in other schools. They don't perform armor protection in other schools. But in our school we do, to protect ourselves. So that is the uncommon Dharma of True Buddha school. There's also visualization. You touch the crown, the throat, the heart, left shoulder, right shoulder, and back to the brow. And as you release the hands, you need to visualize Vajrapani. Do you know how to visualize Vajrapani? One hand holding a Vajra scepter, the other hand is holding the Vajra lasso or other things. That's how he holds his posture, and he looks very fierce and wrathful. And his whole body is black or deep blue or blue Vajrapani, Vajra hand Bodhisattva. and he is the Vajra emanation of Vajrasattva. You need to visualize Vajrapani in front of you, radiating bright light everywhere and protecting you during your Dharma practice. And in Tibetan Tantrayana, it's called the hand Vajra. So you need to do this visualization in our armor protection. Otherwise, if you don't visualize and you just do this, that's it. You have to visualize the deity appearing. As you are forming the mudra, you need to visualize Vajrapani Bodhisattva. His name is Pani. Now, some people say Poni or Pani. Poni or Pani. In Chinese, Pa, Ni, Ni, Pani. His name is Poni. So Om Poni Nanjani. So inviting Vajrapani Bodhisattva to protect everyone. So this is uncommon Dharma. Do you know? Is there any other school that would do this? No, no one, no other schools. But who transmitted this to me is the Master Pu Fang. And then I used it in the Dharma practice and to let everybody use it. Don't undermine armor protection. So wearing the steel armor, nobody can invade you. This only exists in Tribhuta school. So this is not the common Dharma, it is the uncommon Dharma. Talking about Kuan Yin Bodhisattva, I really like talking about words through the grapevine. That in 1991, how long ago was it? 26 years ago. In 1991, on February 24th, I was in Los Angeles and conducted a ceremony in a big hotel. At that ceremony, Hui Wen attended and several people attended in 1991. Nien Man also attended. Long ago, 1991, I was conducting a ceremony in LA. And in the ballroom, at a big place giving a Dharma teaching. And during the Dharma talk, I auctioned my 5 Buddha crown. Do you remember? My 5 Buddha crown was auctioned. And the person who bid and got the item was called Lian Hua Su Qiu. And I changed the name Su. Ji Su the Su. So I didn't write the name. So she got the 5 Buddha crown for $40,000 US. And at that time at LA there was Lian Zhan, Lian Ren, Lian Huan, Lian San, Lian Jie. And they fought for this money. and they argued about the money. And then the person who got the crown did not know who she should give the money to. And then eventually someone went to her to get the money, and that was X. But she was unrelated to LA. She was from San Francisco, but she extended her hand all the way to LA. So she took the 40,000 US dollars and she said, well, I'll just keep it for the time being. And then it lasted until 26 years. She may have forgotten. Well, she should have remembered it because she was taking $40,000, not just $4. So she took that 40,000 US dollars. And then this person, Lianhua Suqiu, opened a restaurant in LA. It's quite a big restaurant and enshrined an earth god. And she invited X to consecrate it at her restaurant. And she was talking or communicating with the earth god. And the earth god said, in order to have good business in the restaurant, there were so many requirements, and one of them that every month a certain percent of the income of the restaurant has to be donated to the X chapter. So basically the income of the restaurant, a certain percent of it has to be donated to X chapter. Okay. And then one day, this is the third incident, that at the restaurant, the employees, and between the boss and the employees, they have a disagreement. And with the landlord, they also have some disparity. And so they consulted X, and then X went to the restaurant and communicated to the earth god. And she said, oh, this is quite troublesome, has to be resolved. And then Hua Zhongqiu asked, how? How should we resolve? And then she replied, then you have to be the sole sponsor for her practice. And then she asked, how much for one practice? 100,000 US dollars each time. And then how many times? And she said, even more than 10 times. 10 is not enough. Okay, for 10 times, that's already 1 million US dollars. Wow, she just howled. She opened her mouth wide. So 100,000 US dollars. And Lianhua Suqiu was quite, and there were 2 stockholders, and one would be 60,000. And after sponsoring the practice, they consulted X again. What is that? I don't understand. I know.
他飞越星空，
The
你要
star
买我的大星星，
space.
天上的最大的星星，买我的大星
So
星。
you have to buy the
多少
greatest
钱呢？
star. And how
13万
much?
8000
$138,000 US dollars. 138,000 US dollars.
然后
And
呢
she
还有
bought
什
it.
么？
What
还
else?
有，你要买这个
You
地，
also need to buy a piece of land.
你算算看有多少？你要买将来叉叉雷藏寺的土地要卖，你要买多
The
少？
piece of land for the X temple
还
for
要
the
包
future.
一尊佛，
And you
将
need
来
to
的
pay
传承
for
的
a
佛像
statue
最
of
大
the
的一尊
Buddha, the biggest
要
one.
你包。好，他也
That's
包
all
了，
for you to donate. And she did.
他也包了一尊佛像，
So she donated the money
也买
for
了一颗
one
大星星。
statue and bought a huge star.
莲花中秋，
莲花中秋.
不是中秋了，不是红中秋，是莲花素
Not like
秋，
the,
莲花素
not
秋，
Zhongqiu, actually Su Qiu.
住在
Lian
LA，
Hua Su Qiu,
他写了，
who live in LA.
他什么都做了，
And she wrote to me.
结果
She did all of her requests.
什么都没有，
And yet she didn't get
而且
anything.
更糟糕，
And actually
花
it
了这
got
么多的钱，
much worse
人家
after
观世音
spending
菩
so
萨
much money.
我刚刚讲的观世音，
You
给
know,
人
Guan Yin
看
Bodhisattva, like what I
解
said,
除人
just
家的
said,
痛苦，
that she
叫做
gives
慈悲。
happiness and
慈
resolve
就是给
people's
人
suffering.
悲啊，就是
So
解除人家
慈悲,
的痛苦，
merciful and compassionate.
给人发财，不是
And to let
花掉
people
所有的
be
钱财
prosper.
花
But the
掉所有的
homophone
钱
is
财
like
啊，在增加人家的痛苦，
spending everybody's
麻烦没
money
有去掉，
and giving
更
sufferings to
加的糟
people.
糕。
That the
所
problems
以
are
他
not
写一封
resolved,
信来给我
but instead got worsened.
控
So she wrote a letter to me
等于是在
to
控告
file a complaint.
他说他上了诈骗集团的当，
And she said that she's got on the scam.
上了诈骗集团。你自己想一想，师尊有没有
So
给人
think
家
about it.
包谈？有没有？
Does
我这一生
grandmother
没有给人家包过
grandmaster
谈
ever
没有。
ask anybody to become the sole sponsor for a
你
practice?
自己想一
Never,
想
never in my
有没有
life
规定一坛要10万块美金的？
did I ever set the price that for one practice I
他
have
给
to
人家包
get
谈一坛要10万块美金。
100,000 US dollars? No,
有
but
时
she
候还
did.
不赚，他认为说，哎，我去办一场法会比这个还多啊。还有一次这个
And sometimes
这个
a
诉求
ceremony is more than this.
说啊
So
就是
Lianhua
做了2
Suqiu
坛，第3坛要请你做。我说我没
had
空，
asked her
第3坛没
to
空。
do the
如果
practice
是
for
我，
her
我说我有空
twice. And when she asked for the third one,
10万
she said,
呢
"Oh, I have no time."
我
But
空
if
得
it's
很
me,
啊
then I would
我半夜
definitely
都
have
帮你
time
做
because it's 100,000
我
each time.
我晚上3点，
I
我
would
不睡
make
我就帮
time
你做
even in the middle of the night or at
10
3
万呢
a.m. because it's
哪看哪那么
100,000
好赚，
US
他还说不
dollars.
做
How could she
我要去
get
办法
money
会
so easily? She said because she needs to conduct ceremony.
10万块钱都不
She
做，
rejected
办法
her
会能
request.
收入多少？
Just imagine how much money she gets from her ceremony.
大家跟他算一算，他一共花了多少钱？
So just calculate how much money this person has
莲
spent.
花诉求，
Lianhua Suqiu.
他说上了诈骗集团的当，
And
他这个
she's claimed that
他其中
she's
文章里
been
面也写到，莲子
swindled
上师讲，
by this fraud group.
是
And
他
Master
的
Lian
专
Zi also said that
他的专长就是
her specialty is lying.
你
The specialty is lying. So think about it. She communicated to the earth god and wanted a certain percent of the monthly income every month. So could that be right? No. It's terrible. The son-in-law talked to the mother-in-law. You're the most beautiful mother-in-law I've ever met. You're endearing. And the mother-in-law asked, why are you closing your eyes, saying that? Well, because that's the Chinese idiom. So I cannot lie through my teeth, which in Chinese is I cannot open my eyes and telling lies. But she did. There's a small story, the first story written by Master Lien Yin. At somebody's house, there was a beehive. You wrote that, right? So X was talking with the bees. So she was communicating with the bees. So the house, the people have invited the fire officers to take away the beehive. But when she got there, she communicated to the bees. And she had the flat tire, and the bees told her. X asked the bees, what is going on with the flat tire? And the bees replied, we did that. That's all I'm talking about now. That the bees can sting the fires of the fire trucks so that they have flat tires. So can you believe that? The bees claim that they did it, communicating to X. Nobody believed that. Even if I think with my athlete's feet, the feet just wiggling, the feet also don't believe. But someone believed in her. And she was really lying through her teeth with the eyes open. A son told his dad, I want to buy a Iron Man. And dad said no. And grandma heard that. Just buy one for him. Otherwise he keeps nagging. And the dad said, but son has to hear to his dad. And the granddad, not grandma, the granddad said, well, but didn't you hear me? X never listened to you. Right? You know, in the Tibetan Buddhism, in the ancient time, they have a term called the heart sun. It's the sun inside my heart. And this heart sun has to listen to the words of his or her lineage root guru. And Lien Yin and Lien Xi were ordained to become nuns.
莲开法师有直接跟他们两个讲，
And Reverend Lien
你们不要
Kai
去西雅，
told them directly, please don't go to Seattle. Then where should we go? Go to San Francisco.
去旧金山。
San Francisco.
那个到最后，莲燕跟莲喜来到了西雅图，
And
没有
yet,
莲开。
Lien Yen and Lien Xi came to Seattle. They were listening to Reverend Lien Kai.
找他的
They
父亲，根本上
came to find their lineage guru,
他
their father.
对这个莲言法师讲，
And X told
我要他们
Reverend
两
Lien
个
Yen, I
来
want
都
both of
做
them
我的侍者
to become my attendants.
做我的侍者。他们跑去西雅图，那
But
是没有用
instead,
的。
they went to
卢师
Seattle
尊那
and
里
they will get
没有什么
nothing.
东西好学，
There's
我
nothing
这
to
里才有
learn
东
from
西
Grandmaster Lu, but they can learn something from me.
去了卢师尊那里没有
By
出路
going
的。
to Grandmaster Lu,
我这里
they
才
have
有
no
出路。
future, but I have
他
future
就
for
跟
them
莲
here.
言法师讲，
She told
你看
Reverend
啊
Lien Yen that.
这种儿子还可以留吗？
So should we keep this
儿
kind of
子是要
son?
听父亲的，
Because son should listen to his
对不对？
dad, right?
那你儿子不听父亲的，听谁的？
So if a son doesn't listen to his
那父亲要
father,
听祖父的。
who
我是祖父啊，
whom would he
他
listen
是父
to?
亲呢。当然祖父比较大啊，
And dad has to
儿子比较
listen to
小。
the
儿
granddad.
子要连
So
连
granddad is more senior
去他
than
那。
dad.
结果他们两个跑到我这里来，嫌我
And
这
the
个祖父
son,
老，
the
我没
son
有去祖父那里没有出席
wanted 连喜连燕 to
没
go
有
to
出席
there.
啊没有什么用
And
的。
instead they came here to the
东西的。
granddad.
东西是我
And
传
she
给
said
你
that
你的，
there's nothing to learn from granddad. You know, there's
当然
nothing
你也可以篡改，
but
篡
things
改也不经过
that
我
you
的同意。
have come from
这
me.
个儿子
Of
是好
course,
儿
you
子吗？
can be creative, but
算是
I
算
have
是
to
女儿
approve.
哪里是儿子？
actually she's not a son at all.
算是儿子吗？讲这种
Can
话，
she be considered a son?
而
Saying
且
those
还讲啊
things. And
因
moreover,
为
she
师
also
尊啊
said
卢师尊啊，73岁就会死啊。
that Grandmaster Lu will die at 73.
这个儿子怎么可以
How
讲
can a son
讲自己的父亲说73岁就
say
会死啊？
that his own father will die at 73?
所以我觉得说像这种
So
不
that's
要有
why
吧。
It's okay
但是
to
我是
just
这样子啊，我这个
let
人
her
很有
go.
毅力，
However,
我什么都没有，就是有
I
毅力。
have
我会念
great
一辈子
perseverance. I have nothing else. All I have is perseverance. I
我告诉
will
你
uh,
没完没
scold
了。
you all my life, endlessly.
就算老夫啊，我这个人毅力就是有的。
I
每一
have
天都要念你，
perseverance. Every day I will
而且
talk
还要
about
写
you.
你，还要广播，
I scold you. I will write about you, and it has to be publicized. It
你
has to
看
be
你
on
得罪了你
webcast.
祖父，你算是什么啊？
So you know you have offended
你
your
算老虎啊
granddad. Who are
你的
you?
念珠都可以飞出去办事啊！
That your chanting beads can
我说你的
fly,
内裤也可以飞
doing
出去办
errands,
事呢，对不对？
and your
德威
underwear
上次
too.
一听说，哇，
And
原
when
来
Master
哇
Dehui
这个
heard
母
that,
亲是这样子的，内裤都飞出去办事啊！
that's how ridiculous it is that the underwear
这
can
念珠
do
啊，
errands
你
for
自己
her.
掉了，
like the
最后
chanting
找
beads
到了。
that you misplaced, and
嘉
then
兴
later
师
you
姐就
found
说
it.
哎，你找到念珠了。
And Dharma Sister Jiaxing asked, "Oh, you found your chanting beads?" And her reply was that, "Oh no, my chanting beads run for errands for me." But I said, underwear is doing errands for me. So if you see an underwear flying in the sky, don't be surprised. That's X underwear. Running for errands. What an embarrassment. Chanting beads, running for errands. My chanting beads are only $5 each. Talking about the strengths of my boyfriend, there's so many of them. They're sunny, cool, handsome, humorous, romantic, and thoughtful. And what is the shortcomings? Of course, because he does not know me yet. You know, let me tell you, I really don't know her. She always said that, oh, Grandmaster said this. No, she never told me what she's been doing for the past 16 years, ever since my retreat. She never told me what she's been doing. Prior to retreat, she also never told me what she's been doing, what she was doing. She's always very secretive, always very secretive. Why? You can just tell your dad whatever you're doing. But for over 20 years, she's always very secretive and deceitful. So this kind of son, can she be considered a son? So in our Buddhist studies, please remember your lineage. Like the lineage from the white sect, very simple. From Marpa to Milarepa to Gampopa. And then the first Karmapa to Sungchenpa. All the way to the 16th Karmapa. And then to Grandmaster. That's the lineage from the Kagyupa. So we have a lineage. I highly respect my own gurus. Every time prior to a Dhamma teaching, I will pay homage to the Venerable Mang Liao Ming, to Master Sakya Cheng Kong, to His Holiness the 16th Karmapa, and to Master Dukden Dorji. If there's no homage, then that wouldn't be Grandmaster. So that's the tantric lineage in my Dharma transmission. You need to remember, if you want to follow, you should follow the one that has lineage, not those that have broken or without lineage. This is extremely important. It's crucial. At the Dharma throne, I often say, open your eyes wide and check who's been hoarding money, who's been going for territories, and who's broken the lineage. After she was ordained, as a master, she never say what she's been doing. And also her followers are very disrespectful. Like Lian Kai, you know, he's very disrespectful, like this. I'm very serious now, that this would be my duty for the rest of my life. I will always reprimand you.